So if you buy something and you sell it within a year, is it a flip? Probably. If you buy something and you sell it within 3 years, is it a flip? It starts to get a little gray. 5 years, probably a hold. So I call this a hold strategy, but it can also be a flip strategy. But let's just call it a hold strategy. Again, I'd like to thank Disney for some of my artwork. So success on a hold is measured with the debt service coverage ratio. We use cap rate to establish value. I use cap rate to establish value. Not everyone uses cap rate to establish value. If I see a property and it looks like dog doo-doo, I'm going to give it a 12% cap rate. I don't think anything above 12% is realistically from this planet. Feel free to disagree with me. 5% is what the average international investor looks for on a nice Class A building. So my factors for cap rate are 5, 7, 9, or 12. A, B, C, and D. Do we need to do a cap rate calculation drill to arrive at the value? Maybe we'll get to one in a minute. Debt service coverage rate to establish viability. I wouldn't personally do anything below 1.5 to 1. If the debt service coverage ratio is less than 1.5 to 1, I would not do that deal. If you're collecting less than $1,500 in net rental income on a $1,000 PITI payment, I would not do that transaction. So a lot of the successful single-family residence investors sell their homes. Well, they rent their homes technically to tenants, but they give them options to buy. They have a lot of pride of ownership, and oftentimes they buy these options. So let me give you some program guidelines. Soft money, rates range from 6 to 9%. Loan amounts are up to 80% loan to value of the appraised value. 10% down payments required. That doesn't mean you'll be limited 10%. That means there could be a seller carryback second. Depends on the property. No personal income required based on debt service coverage ratio. Again, avoid the niche products. It's also available in conventional loans. Pitfalls are management and landlording skills required. Don't over-renovate your rentals. Watch out for bad tenants. Sure, a lot of this is obvious. Case study of investment strategy. All right. Joe finds a house for sale for $200,000. The rehab budget is $100,000. The after repair value is expected at $400,000. Joe puts in $30K of his own money, which is 10% of the $300,000. Seller pays closing costs. Joe is new, and his interest-only loan is at 12% per year with a 1-year call. Joe finances $270,000 with a monthly interest-only payment of $2,700. After 6 months on the market, unfortunately, the house doesn't sell. Joe gets a tenant. Tenant wants to buy the house. Once her credit is in good enough condition to qualify, Joe sells an option for $5K to buy at $400K plus 3% inflation and rents the house for $3,000 per month. Joe refinances $280,000, so the $270 plus closing costs, $280, with us at 6.5 on a 7/1 arm, with a 30-year amortization and a monthly payment of $1,769, principal and interest. PITI would be $2,000. Probably would be in this case because the taxes would be on the unrenovated value. But it's just a round number for example purposes. House is in good condition. DSCR is 1.5 to 1. Joe cash flows $1,000 per month, and then he's due to get $120,000 plus at the sale. If Joe does 2 of these per year, how long until $1 million? Maybe make this a homework assignment. About 4 years. Say 5% appreciation. Atlanta currently has 6% appreciation on average, so they say. National average is 4%. We're ranked number 4 in the country for growth. We're ranked number 3 in the country for jobs. Atlanta's kind of hot, and that's before the Super Bowl bid at Mercedes Stadium next year, the 22 multi-million-dollar mixed-use projects going into West Midtown and Northwest Atlanta, and another 25 different industrial complexes that are going in from Stone Mountain to Gwinnett. And there's also multiple projects in Gwinnett and off of 85 on the even further north, including Amazon's production facility in Stone Mountain. Their production facility, not their headquarters. I don't know about their office. So if Joe likes the passive income and the equity appreciation, how many would Joe need to make $20,000 per month passively? It's a question for Steve Lovey. He's a passive income guru. The easy answer is 10.
2 a year.
Yeah. So we completed 2 owner-occupied strategies. We completed 2 residential investment strategies. And before we go on to commercial, I'm going to open it up for questions. I'm also going to talk about the buy and hold strategy being a safer approach than the aggressive fix and flip. So when you find something and it looks like it's a great deal, it's under market, you may also want to qualify it for debt service coverage, because if it doesn't rent, if it doesn't sell, you want to make sure that it rents for a basic premium. So evaluate investments for both the cash-on-cash return and the debt service coverage ratio, because sometimes you'll have to roll with the punches. If it fits both boxes, then you have a great backup plan. Had this one not been such a great backup plan, this could be a much worse ending to a wonderful ending. All right, we're going to move on from Finding Nemo to the Jungle Book. Who here works with many apartment buildings? Apartment buildings are great. There's multiple different rental units. There's self-storage. There's a number of different conduits, strip malls, when you don't occupy more than 50%. Commercial space, I would avoid offices, but there's several types of commercial space that are definitely worth looking into and that can cash flow. So I get a lot of people that say, okay, I want to move on to a passive income approach. I want to quit my job. I want to become an investor. I want to do, different things, different goals. Well, oftentimes when one needs to reach their retirement income levels, a higher number of doors are required. Apartment buildings are great for that. Low-rise mixed use with smaller affordable housing is the current trend. 4 or 5 story commercial first floor, residential first to 4th floor, those are happening everywhere nationwide. A lot more new construction is making sense than rehabs. Ready 369 program guidelines. Loan amounts are up to 70%. 10% down required. When you get into larger commercial, you have to meet experience and fitness criteria. Things have to start making sense on a bigger picture. What's your resume? What'd you do for the last 10 years? People are going to ask you those questions, and don't be annoyed. They're irrelevant. You're borrowing millions of dollars in some cases. If you have a business, it's expected to be successful. If you don't have a business, then there's nothing really to measure that with other than how long have you not been working for, which will be something that you'd have to answer. And the best answer is a business that runs itself, so you may not be relevant to the equation. Common sense underwriting is first and foremost. Management's pitfall. Cash to closing as usual. Don't own or renovate. Bad tenants and squatters. Back to Joe. So Joe has a lot of success with short-term holds and some flips. He got burnt out with light bulb and leaky toilet calls. So after landlording for 5 years, Joe liquidates everything. He has $1 million. Buys an RV, drives around the Midwest. After 3 years driving around the Midwest, he decides he has to do something. He's going to lose his mind. He's also not happy about depleting his reserves. As luck has it, he happens into an apartment building for sale. The building needs some TSC. Joe begins to investigate. The building he saw was distressed, mismanaged, but full. So, cap rate is going to be 12%. Value of the building is going to be the net operating income divided by 12%. Right? The higher the cap rate, the less it's worth. So there's no financials available on this building. Joe does his own calculation to bring it up to par, maintenance calculations, arrives at the net operating income based on 90% occupancy, currently at 100. He does a debt service calculation, realizes the potential, and that there's easily a 2-to-1 DSCR at 90% occupancy. He decides he can't pass it up because he expects it to be $12,000 per month in passive income. Joe takes $500K out of his savings and buys this $2 million apartment building with 30 doors, currently cash flowing at $1,000 per door. That's $30,000. Mortgage payment, you guys could calculate the mortgage payments on your financial calculators that you just downloaded. On this one, it would be around 9,000 and some change. So we're estimating the PITI at 12,000. Joe would hire an on-site manager, give him a free apartment, and $3,000 per month. Joe's a generous guy. Net operating income, 24,000. Divide that by the $12,000 PITI payment. That's a 2-to-1 debt service coverage ratio. Is this a good deal?
Great deal.
2-to-1 is always a good deal. 2-to-1 is always a great goal to shoot for debt service coverage ratio on an investment property. This building's in bad shape. Oops. The building's in bad shape. We give it a 12% cap rate. The building's in awesome shape. Thank you. 5% at best. In the middle, we fall in the middle. This building, so back to the left, right? Okay. This building was in bad shape. We gave it a 12% cap rate, mainly because it was so ugly. Who wants to tell me what they would value this building at? What'd you say, Steve? 2.4 million. If he gets it for 2, it's a good deal. Basically, what Steve did was he took the that calculation at the bottom and read it. Because he's as observant as he is brilliant. All right, so do we have any questions about commercial loans before we go into business purpose commercial loans?
The investment loan is 30% down payment. If you're owner occupier, you can get 10%, but in reality, if you're an investor, you have to come up with 30% if you're not owner occupier.
So on single family and 1 to 4 units, we go up to 80% loan to value.
I'm talking about commercial.
On commercial, we go up to 70% loan to value. However, the seller can carry back a 20% second.
Because sometimes the lender don't close their eyes very much.
Well, our eyes are wide open. It's a genuine second. It's not a hot air second. It's not based on inflated value. And we actually expect them to collect on it. It happens often. I actually did a deal. I'll tell you guys about this deal. It didn't make the chart because I was so exhausted typing all this stuff up. There was a building for sale in Mableton. It was for $500,000. We were representing the buyer, not the seller, actually. And the seller, I've got to give him credit for being an absolute genius during this transaction. So the buyer says, okay, I have a new LLC. I have $100,000. I want to buy this building. I'm like, okay, you have no financials. At best, you're going to qualify for a hard money loan. You're going to have to come up with $125,000. So you got to find $25,000 more, plus closing costs. Payments are going to be like $4,000 a month, and it's going to be a struggle to make this all work. So we approached the seller for owner financing, and the seller said he was open to doing owner financing with the same amount down, but he couldn't come up with it. So he agreed to do owner financing at 12% interest rate with $85,000 down. So And then I think he played us after this, because the next thing he said, we just fell into a series of traps. It was like watching Columbo unravel a mystery. So he goes, but I don't want you to ever pay me. I don't want him to pay me off within 5 years. I was like, oh, okay, well, how do you propose we do that? It's a, you want a prepayment penalty? He's like, well, even if we put in a 5% prepayment penalty, he's like, here's what we'll do. I'll increase the present value to a 0% interest rate. I was like, what's going on? Who is this guy? And he ended up writing this transaction up, increased the purchase price to $800,000. He didn't care because he was doing a 1013 exchange. Kept the payment at the same amount and financed it himself personally. So there's no 1099 INT interest statement in the year. The buyer was writing a check straight to this guy, and the purchase price went from $500,000 to $800,000. I was just like, I felt like the rats in the movie where the guy with the fiddle. I don't know what. I was just like, well, I don't think he's worried about that. He's probably going to go back to his country of origin pretty soon. But he's got a $500,000 balloon in 5 years. He's got $4,000 in monthly payments being written out to himself personally. There's no interest. There's no interest because it's a 0% interest.
The IRS won't allow that.
I didn't know. What do you mean?
There's an imputed interest that he's going to have to pay.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
How many is?
It's 5 years, 5-year balloon. So there was a category that didn't make our chart. It was going to be called creative, and there's just not enough time to go through all the possible scenarios. But that actually happened 3 months ago, and it's one of my favorite creative scenarios that I've seen. But all he did was manipulate the factors involved in net present value.
Did you get bids?
Yeah, of course. So seller pays our commission on those transactions, which is one reason why everyone should use us for buyer's agency, because we'll give you a discount when you come to us for representation and purchasing things. We cut our mortgage fees from 2 to 1. And if it's on multiple transactions, we cut it in half again. But I'll plug myself at the end. Stay tuned for that. Business loans. All right, so it was just too much to type. I'd rather just spiel it out. When we do an SBA loan, we want 3 years financials, personal and business, for every business. And then your business financials have to be monthly P&Ls. And then they have to be annually summarized. And then we have to prepare a prospectus based on those P&Ls moving forward for the next 3 years. We have to order what's called an environmental study to make sure that your facility doesn't have any groundwater contamination or watershed. That can go into a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3. The appraisals, let's say you're buying a gas station, God help you. Maybe $5,000 to $10,000, starting at 5, going up to 10 on a larger project. So, on business loans, be prepared to pay $20,000 during the process. The underwriting fee, it's not even our fee, it's an underwriting fee to the lender when they accept it. It's $3,000 to $5,000. Our processing fee is $3,000 to $5,000. So on an SBA loan, let's say you find a wonderful restaurant that's going to appreciate. On an SBA loan, you may have to pay $1,200 for an environmental if the environmental's clear. $3,000 for the appraisal on the low end. $3,000 for the lender underwriting fee. $3,000 for our processing fee on the low end. And accounting fees typically run you another 3 to 5 because no one ever has their financials in proper order. But don't let that discourage you. Because SBA does 90% loan to value on the acquisition of real estate, and they do 70% loan to value on the business. The last SBA loan I did was on an existing business. It was a $3 million building. Is Phil here? No. It was a,
Are these recourse loans or non-recourse?
oh, they're heavily recourse. Yeah. They even like to lien your house. They'll actually ask to lien all your houses in some instances. If they're over 80% loan to value. So we like to cash everyone out on all their houses before we go into an SBA loan. That way they don't try to add a blanket lien on all of them. And they often use the money for the down payment. But to fast forward to the conclusion, the last SBA loan I did, the guy came to closing with about $45,000 after we put it all together. And it was a $3 million establishment, and today it's worth $7 million, and that was a year and 2 months ago. It's a bar. Finance Bulldogs on Peachtree Street. Combination plans. No one is really going to have one of these strategies.
No,
What? Sure. It does. It is. Most plans are going to be a combination of multiple things. Most people should bounce an idea off of an advisor of some kind. When you are in the situation, you don't always see through the woods clearly. A lot of people that buy homes end up wanting to do something else. If it has the merit, it's pursuable. It's a very personal evaluation and has to be done for each person individually, for consultants individually. But education is why we're all here, and education is the first step to taking the next step, which is getting advised on what to do if you don't arrive at your conclusions yourself. And then the next step is action. Here's some trends. And this is my last slide. Don't look too excited, everybody. Trends. Strongholds often become hoppers, naturally. Many successful hoppers do the occasional flip. Can't help but look for real estate once you start. Becomes a Sunday drive addiction. I've seen a trend in hard flippers becoming soft flippers. Because the hard money route is the most difficult. The hard and fast flip is the most stressful, hardest way to make a living as an investor out of all the scenarios. I don't discourage it, but know what you're signing up for. Once sufficient assets are obtained, a lot of people go into commercial. And reverse mortgages are a useful tool for seniors, lines of credit, and a number of things to begin their next venture. Life expectancy is 92 for men, 94 for women. By the time any of us are 92 or 94, it's probably going to be 100. So plan to live. Passive income is going to be the secret. We're going to do a much longer version of this with matrices and spreadsheets and grids. Enough to really make you not want to listen to me ever again. On August 18th and 19th. Residentially, credit, income, assets are the three most important points. So for you people entertaining a residential investment strategy, we'll take a look at your income. That also goes for Fannie Mae. We'll dissect what's happening with your Schedule C or your Schedule E. And if anyone wants their credit reports pulled, we have a way of manipulating that. Credit's a very important element. A lot of times if you have a low score on good credit, it's because your balances are too high to their limits. Simple, easy simulators are available. It costs $22. We're not selling it for $20. You just pay the cost directly to Credit Technologies. If you need a simulator, I think they're $5 per bureau. If you need something valid removed off your credit, we can do it in a couple of days. It's $25 per line item per bureau. It's not my service, it's Credit Technologies service. So basically we have access to the portals, and these credit reports are transferable directly to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So as a non-delegated underwriter, I pull what's called an AUS approval directly from Fannie Mae, Freddie's portal, and then we upload the credit report to it. So when we're brokering deals, the lender we use to send that deal is just a conduit to arrive at Fannie and Freddie, who's buying it on the secondary market. Assets, there's no way around it. Don't sign up for my class if you got no income and no job. My advice is going to be get a job. And then you're going to want your money back. So we have some requirements. Sorry about that. At the end of the class, we're going to do 3 follow-up meetings. 1 for planning, 1 for consulting, and 1 for accountability. You know, and I encourage everyone to bring their consultants with them to a meeting. There's nothing worse than people saying that someone said that. If you sign up for this class and you have consultants, bring them. Bring everybody. That completes my presentation. This is my office number. Oh, we'll be open for questions. I'm not a phone snob. If you want to call me, feel free to call me. Hopefully you have something you're trying to buy when you call me. But if not, you know, we can talk. Anyone 62 years or older, I'm personally committed to helping anyone over that age group make the right financial decisions. I'll always meet with anyone 62 or older for free. And you can work with anyone you want. I'm not going to try to sell you on working with me. I'm probably better than whoever you're working with to work with, but I'm not going to sell you on that. I do have people come to me that are working with other people, and that's fine. We can do that as a consultant, and if you're a senior, I'm happy to help. A lot of people have relationships with mortgage people and real estate people, and I'm not one to step on that. That completes my presentation, everyone. We're going to open it up for questions, but thank you. Yes.
What's out there right now in terms of like land acquisition and development?
One problem is getting $1 million of equity is fine, but you can't spend it. You have to have cash.
I haven't looked at land in a long time, so I don't know. I know.
Like buying land and developing a small commercial.
Yeah. In Mableton, in the Mableton area, which there's a lot of room for growth going west, there's a lot of opportunity for land there. CSX, which was 350,000 acres, is selling the train tracks. So I don't know what parcel increments those are going to be available in. And it depends if you're talking about in town, close to in town, or out in the sticks. Because that can be a very complicated conversation.
And then for the finance,
So it's either good or horrible in that arena. You're either going to have to go hard money with your financing, or you're going to have to go federal savings bank. And to go with a larger construction project, we broker to those federal savings banks too. But to go with a larger construction project, you're really going to have your financials and your business plan and your model and your experience well polished. And the reserves you're going to have are going to almost have to appear that you don't even need a business loan. So unless you're a highly liquid candidate for that sort of a project, you're probably going to end up going hard money. And hard money is great. Hard money is fantastic. Let me tell you why I love hard money. 10 years ago, you took on let's say you do 10 projects a year, and one of your projects went to crap. 10 years ago, you'd have a foreclosure on your history, and you'd never be able, you'd have to wait another 7 to 10 years to work your way out of that hole. Now you can say, oops, sorry, here you go. Lender's an investor, and they'll let you off the hook by taking the property. You might lose your 10%, but you get to play again. You know, and pick your battles. 12%. If you keep a loan for 2 months and it's at 12%, it's 2%. That's $1 a month. You know.
Greg, could you repeat the question and some of the discussion going on here, because no one here knows what's going on. Oh,
I have to remember the question.
What kind of loan can I get to develop commercial property?
Yeah,
Is
like
that the
say for
loan?
instance, buying the land, developing something small on it, like a
Strip. You want to build a strip
strip
mall?
mall, or maybe a family house,
A strip club.
whatever. No. Not strip club.
All right.
Well, that's the question. How can you get money from commercial?
It's very difficult to get construction money for large commercial projects. Small commercial projects are easier, but none of the large banks are doing them. So they're going to have to go hard money. Almost all construction projects, unless you actually go to your bank and get them from your bank, are going to be hard money. Now, some banks, BB&T is a good bank for small balance commercial construction projects. They'll do something like that because they'll have the physical locations in close proximity to manage the oversight of those types of projects. There won't be any banks that don't have physical locations.
Some of us are probably going to Rose and Crown. If anybody's interested,
Yes.
go to Rose and Crown.
Rose and Crown. A drink. Johnny Black, if anyone wants to buy me a shot or a drink. Johnny Walker Black. Mike Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Smith. Okay, Mike Smith's question, ladies and gentlemen, was he did not follow along with why I did not push back on my client buying a $500,000 property for $800,000. Because he wasn't paying the purchase price, he was paying the payment. And the cash outflow was exactly the same over 5 years, and his other options looked much worse. Right. Plus, we're also talking about a non-recourse loan. Yeah. And in his case, he's paying $4,000 a month, and it's a big unit in Mableton. It's close to 8,000 square feet. He's renting out the other side to a dance studio for $3,500. He's now paying $500 a month managing his side, and as long as he stays on track, it's exactly the same outcome. And when he goes to sell it, it'll be based, his capital gains will be based on a purchase price of $800,000, and he'll be in a much better position. So it's actually to his benefit. Where it gets a little gray is that when the guy went to closing, he made the note payable to himself personally. On a commercial loan. So it's like, just send me a check for $4,000 a month, that's great. And I was like, now I get it. There's where it ties into the 0% interest. If the interest was 0.01, he would have had to report a 1099 INT statement. But since he did 0% interest, there's no interest statement. Yeah. What's up, Gary? More than 4. The question was, have I closed on any Type C multifamily? Yes, but are you talking about under 4 doors or more than 4? Yeah, we've done a few. Most of them have been 12, 10, 12. I haven't really seen too much under 9 because they've all been kind of ugly that have been for sale. I mean, it is market.
Class C, fully occupied.
I've been involved in 2 transactions this year, and they've been at Type C buildings at 12% cap rates. So there's a theory that the apartment buildings are going to decline in value. There's a lot of them going up, and they've theoretically peaked. And so now may be a good time to buy apartment buildings. Seems like there's a heavy supply, heavy demand right now, and not enough inventory. And so there's a lot of production going up, but it's not all the same type of inventory. There's still a need for houses, no matter what happens with all these mixed-use developments. Jason?
I'm just curious, kind of glossed over the guy who paid $45,000 for the $3 million property. He said SBA, but I didn't quite understand how he got that.
Okay. So it was a partner buyout, and the exact numbers are a little gray. I'm going off memory. So SBA's rules are 90% loan to value on real estate, 70% loan to value on businesses. So let's say theoretically you and I are a business partner. And you say, okay, Rick, I want to buy you out. Well, we could borrow, or you could borrow 70% of the value of the business. And what's the value of the business? The value of the business is usually 3.5 times the annual profits. So if the business makes $300,000 a year, the value of the business is, say, $1 million. You can borrow $700,000 on the value of the business. And if the building is worth $3 million, you can borrow $2.7 million on the value of the business. You could actually do a cash out purchase at $3.5 million. But it's going to be a painful experience. We do SBAs pretty quickly. Some people do them in like 6 months. And that's because the banks are so departmentalized, the loan officers aren't allowed to talk to the underwriters. They make you walk in stages. Okay, now you're in the environmental stage. I don't do that way. I normally just order everything at once. I just don't have the patience to hang around for 6 months for anything. We're gonna order environmental appraisal. Well, first I need to get it approved. And I'm also not limited to using any one lender. I'm gonna find out who's hungry, who's aggressive, and who's actually closing. And those are who we send our paper to. And then once we do that, we have a few conversations, we feel each other out, and we just order everything. No need to turn something like borrowing money into a drudginous process. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Hopefully I see you guys at Rose and Crown. Excellent. Good to see you.